Welcome back to the Frankie Fix channel, and I appreciate all of the subscribers, all the new subscribers, all the past subscribers. I really appreciate the support. It helps the channel, helps me do more things like this. So today we're looking at my 2005 Jeep Liberty, and you can see how nice I've kept it over the years. And recently I've noticed an issue with it, and so I wanted to do a video on it, and it has to do with the air conditioning system. So I'm going to go through how to use these manifold gauges here. We're going to hook them up to the system, and I'm also first going to show you what the issue is. So I want you to keep an eye on this clutch here, and what the clutch does is electromagnetically pulls in the clutch, and this pulley here spins freely, but when the clutch is engaged, it engages the compressor. So the compressor doesn't always run. Typically it's going to only run, and it should only run, when you engage the air conditioning system. Now it's not going to continuously run, but if it's cycling on and off, every 5-6 seconds, that's an issue. So I'm going to show you the issue first, and then we'll get into the rest of it. So stay tuned. Okay, so I'm just going to start it up, and I want you to keep an eye here on that clutch and see what it does. Saw what was happening. This was cycling on and off way too many times, and the most common cause of that is low refrigerant. And what would trigger that is the low pressure sensor. Now on your car, you're going to have two different sensors. You're going to have a high pressure sensor, and on the Jeep Liberty, this is 3.7 liter Jeep Liberty Sport, this is going to be your high pressure sensor, and the low pressure sensor is going to be on top of the canister on the firewall here. Now the location is going to vary depending on your vehicle. So what I'm going to do is just do a quick test. I'm going to take the low pressure sensor wire off, and I'm just going to jump it. Just a little piece of wire I made. And what should happen is, if it's not an issue with the compressor, then that should continually turn. It should stay engaged. I'm back by the firewall where the sensor cable attaches, and I'm just going to press it to release it, and you can see the connector there. It has two, some of them might have four. I'm going to take the wire and I'm going to put it in this connector, and then we're going to see if the compressor stays engaged. So I'm going to start the vehicle up, and let's see if that does the same thing as it did before. If it stays engaged, then it could either be a sensor, or it's the sensor's doing its job. It's low pressure in the refrigerant. So we might just have to top it off a little bit. Now, I'm not that surprised, because this vehicle is already 20 years old. I've never serviced the AC on this vehicle, but I just noticed the other day that clutch just kept engaging. I could hear it. So what we're going to try to do, if that's the case, is just top it off with some refrigerant. Okay, now that we have that jumped, we're going to restart the vehicle, put the AC on, and we're going to see if that clutch keeps spinning, or if it does an intermittent on and off cycle. As you can see, it kept spinning, so I know that the clutch is good. It's engaging. I know that the compressor is working. So what that tells me is just a low pressure condition. That's what these sensors are there for. If it's too high, it's going to do that. If it's too low, it's going to do that. I know it's not too high because I've never serviced the system. I didn't add any Freon recently. I didn't do any work on the AC system. I'm the only one that works on this vehicle. So I'm going to hook up the sensor. I'm going to put it back. remove the jumper wire, and then I'm going to hook up these gauges here. And you don't have to be intimidated by these gauges. They're probably around 30 bucks. They're really handy to have. You have your low side and you have your high side. But we're going to get into that in a minute. We're going to hook it up, and we're going to hook up some R134A. You just want to make sure you have the right refrigerant for your system. Usually you're going to see a tag on your car here. It could be on the hood, underneath the hood, on the front here. And it's going to tell you a bunch of things, tell you what refrigerant that you're using. It's also going to tell you how much. In this case, I didn't drain the system out. It's not empty. It has refrigerant in it, so I'm just topping it off. And there's also oil that goes through the system as well that you would have to replace if you had removed any of the AC components. But we're not getting into any of that today. This is pretty simple fix, but we're going to see if it works. So stay with me and we're going to continue this job. So let's take a look at these gauges. You have your low pressure side here and you have your high pressure side, and what we're looking for is the PSI, which is going to be that inner circle. You can see there's several circles with numbers on them. We're paying attention to the HG PSI. So you have your low pressure, high pressure, and you have these knobs, and these should be off. So you want to turn them all the way to the right. And then we have a yellow line here, and the yellow line is it's a dual purpose thing. It's for refilling, and it's also for pulling a vacuum. Now if you had just worked on your AC system and you replaced the compressor, you'd have to pull vacuum, and it would be like 30. You would see this needle go down to 30, and you would lock these down, and typically you'd let it wait for maybe an hour or so to see if there's a difference in that reading, and that'll tell you if you have a leak or not. But for our case today, I'm just going to hook the blue one up. So I'm going to go ahead and take this cap off here. You can see the cap. Make sure you don't lose that. And these only fit in certain ports. You can see here, you just pull up on it. It's a quick connect. You got your Schrader valve here. This will only fit on this port, on your low pressure. So if you tried to put it on the high pressure, that's too big. It won't fit. So that's kind of nice that it prevents you from hooking them to the wrong ones. So basically you would make sure this knob here is turned all the way to the left, because if you look inside of there, you're going to see like a plunger, and in there you have a Schrader valve. So you don't want that all the way down, because when you press this in, it's going to press the Schrader valve, and you're going to have stuff squirting out of there. So make sure this is all the way to the left, so it's raised up. And I'm just going to pull up on that fitting there, and it should snap in. And you want to make sure you wiggle it a little bit, make sure it's not loose. And we're also going to tighten this up, make sure that's tight. Now you don't have to use a wrench on that, just hand tight. So here's the can of refrigerant, and I wasn't that happy because I went to AutoZone and apparently it's out of season, so all the cheaper ones they took off the shelves. And so the guy was nice. He went back in their storage area, in their stock area, and he looked around for a while, and he came up with this. I guess it's not going to hurt. It has stop leak in it. It's not really the one I wanted, but it's the one that I got, so that's what we're going to work with. So I had to end up going back to the store because I wasn't getting any of the refrigerant out of the can. And the reason is, and I didn't realize it right away, is because I've had these gauges for like 20 years. And you have the fill line here, and the fill line goes into the valve, and there's two different kinds of valves. There's a piercing valve, and then there's a self-sealing valve. So the can that I have is a self-sealing can. I don't even know if they sell the piercing cans anymore. I guess it's better because you can reuse the can. because it is self-sealing. So that's what I had to go get, was this self-sealing valve. And you can see the package right here. Alright, so we have our low side hooked up here. We haven't screwed this down yet. We have our manifold gauge hooked up. These are all tight. I'm not using the red part because you fill from the blue part. That's the part that you would fill at the low pressure point. So these are both off. So we're just going to hook it into the valve, the yellow line, which is our vacuum or our fill line. It's the middle here. And then you screw your can in. I'm going to tighten this valve down, and then I'm going to have to take a screwdriver in the Schrader valve until I see some spray come out, just to get the air out of the line. Okay, so I do recommend wearing safety goggles as well, because you don't want this 134A spraying in your face. But let me get a screwdriver. I'm going to go ahead and press this valve and just release it, release the air out of it until we start to see some refrigerant come out. Alright, that should do it. You could see in the beginning we had just air, and then we started to get refrigerant out. So we're ready to fill. So I'm going to start the vehicle up, and I'm going to slowly turn this knob just a little bit. I'm not going to open it all the way. I just want to top it off. And what I'm going to be watching for is that clutch. It's going to be cycling. I'm going to wait to see till that clutch permanently engages. And that's telling me that the low pressure sensor is saying that I'm above the threshold for the low pressure. So as I suspected, it did exactly what I thought it would do. Once I reached the point above low pressure for that sensor, the compressor kept running. I have the windows all open. The air conditioning is turned up all the way. It's coming out nice and cold. So my can is all empty. I was kind of moving it like this while it was filling. Now there is a little bit more. If you look in the sight glass, you can see a little bit of liquid in there. So what I'm going to do is just open up this valve here. I'm not going to unhook the can. I don't want to let air into the system. But I'm just going to open the valve enough, and then I'll open this blue one, and it should suck in the rest of this fluid into the system. There's only a little bit left in there, so might as well use it. Okay, so I'm all done. I'm going to unhook the low pressure line here. I'm just going to take this knob and I'm going to turn it all the way to the left, and that way that plunger is going to rise up. And then I'm just going to pull up this quick connector. That's it. And then I'm going to put the cap back on. Now you might see some bubbling in there. I don't see any. That's normal if you had just filled it. But if it continues for more than 5 minutes, then you could have an issue with that Schrader valve. Now I didn't see any issues. You have the low pressure sensor and the high pressure. So between the two, if I had put too much in, if I put too much in, it would trip this high pressure sensor, and then that clutch would stop. So I ran it for, it had to be 10 minutes. The clutch pretty much kept spinning. The fan was turning on intermittently, which is good. I had the windows open. I also placed a fan in front of the vehicle to simulate driving air. And what else can I say? I think I hope that you guys learned something from using these manifold gauges. I was going to hook up the red, but then I started to hear some hissing here, so I'm going to have to take a look at that. I didn't want to keep it you're looking for the washer that's in there, and that's definitely in there. I mean, I had it hooked up the other day and I didn't hear that, so I don't know what's going on with that one. But for filling, you don't need this red one open. You basically just fill from the blue. So I'm just going to put my cap back on there, and I think it's a wrap for today, but it was coming out cold. I think we're done with this. I appreciate you guys watching. Hope you learned something from it, the basics of using a manifold gauge. And like and subscribe if you like the channel. And I do have another channel that I'm working on. It's basically all computer stuff. So if you're interested in that, I'll put the link in the description. You guys take care, and we'll see you next time.